Shopify grows your business no matter how far or big you grow. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're selling your fans' next favorite shirt or an exclusive piece of podcast merch, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Allbirds, Rothy's, Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in.
It's not my birthday, but today, the Planted Runner podcast officially turns 1. Yes, it's been 1 year since I started this journey, and if you've been here since the very beginning, thank you. You have made this possible, and I'm deeply grateful and honored you are here. I hope that you've become a better runner than you were a year ago, and you are still loving the process. So today, I'd like to do something a little different to celebrate this milestone. I've invited Jeremy Noessel, my audio engineer, as well as an athlete I coach, to interview me. I'll share the behind-the-scenes details of the past year that I haven't shared anywhere else. Jeremy will share his perspective on what it's been like from his point of view, and we'll talk about what's next for me, the show, and what I'm doing with my own running. Welcome to The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic, and my mission is to help you improve your running, your mindset, and your life with science-backed training and plant-based nutrition. Today, I'm in the hot seat spilling all the tea about leaving one of the most successful running podcasts in the world to starting from zero with a brand new show and coaching business. I became a full-time creator, coach, and author all within the last 12 months, and believe me, it was quite a ride. I hope you'll join me for this special conversation that honestly is only made possible because of you. And now here's my conversation with Jeremy.
Hello, Claire. Welcome to the Planted Runner podcast, which you host.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's fun to kind of have a role reversal here.
Yeah, this is a special occasion. We have a milestone that you're celebrating.
Yes.
It is the 1-year anniversary of the Planted Runner podcast. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. You're a big part of it. I thought it would be fun to switch roles and have you interview me for the podcast instead of me just like blathering on about myself. So I hope this will be fun and entertaining for everybody.
Yeah, me too. So when you think about it's been a year of this adventure, how are you feeling about that?
It is awesome. I mean, in one way, it's gone by so fast. And in another way, I really do feel every single one of the episodes that we've made. But, like the interesting thing is I kind of hit the ground running with the show. I had been a podcaster for about 2.5 years with my other show, which we could talk a little bit about in a minute. And so I really felt that I had a unique advantage because some of the audience came with me, but I also had already learned how to podcast. I already knew what kind of show I was going to make when I started. So I feel like I got a lot of the bumps out of the way, but doing it myself, going from being hired to do this for somebody else versus, okay, you're all out on your own. Like that was a big leap. And, I just can't be happier how it's turned out so far.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, we started working together in February of 2020 when you took over the Run to the Top podcast with Runners Connect. And in full disclosure, I still edit that podcast as well.
Yes.
And you're right. You did come in with an advantage that I think a lot of new podcasters don't have, because you did have that experience. I think, the other thing too, just from a kind of a production standpoint, you also had a very clear vision of what you wanted the Planet Runner podcast to be. And I think that's absolutely critical when starting a new venture like this. So kind of thinking about that, would you be comfortable going into some more detail with, what that journey sort of looked like, coming into take over Run to the Top and then progressing on to, spinning off into your solo career?
Yeah, definitely. So with Run to the Top, Runners Connect actually had another podcast called The Extra Kick. And what that used to be is we coaches, because I was coaching mainly for Runners Connect, we would take a week and do these short episodes. So 1 week a month or 1 week every 4 or 5 weeks, we would rotate. And so I got to write and produce my little episode, for 5 days a month, basically. And so that was really my introduction. And we did that for a couple of years before I was actually named to take over hosting of the Run to the Top. Now, I had wanted to be the host of that show for a really long time, but it went to other people for various reasons. And so when I finally got it, I was over the moon. It was exactly what I wanted. I had a taste of it from doing The Daily Show, and I was really, really excited to take over. But, I was still very green. I had a lot to learn. I had a lot to learn about how it all worked, because really, I wasn't just the host. I was the writer. I was the producer. I did everything except audio. You did the audio, but everything else I had to just create, which was wonderful in a way, because I had free reign to just follow my heart, do what I wanted to do, interview the people I wanted to interview. But also was scary because I didn't know what I was doing. And, so I definitely made a lot of mistakes. And, thankfully I did that while getting paid, but still. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to push back on you on that. I don't think you made, I don't remember any mistakes.
Good.
So yeah, so I would not be too critical of yourself. I think you came in pretty strong from the get-go.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. So, I loved doing that job. I absolutely loved it. And I knew that I wanted to do it on my own, but that's a big step. And this was still sort of a part-time gig from me. I was still had one foot in real estate. I was still coaching with them. I was still, I was podcasting with them. So each little bit of this kind of contributed to me making a living. And so I had to say, decide what to do. So because I was an independent contractor, I was allowed to coach on my own. That was perfectly fine. So I slowly started doing that. I was coaching on my own, starting to build up the business on my own, starting to really work on Instagram, getting that big, and starting to build my brand as a coach. Because, as much as I love podcasting, my true passion is coaching, is helping other runners be the best runner they can be. And so once I finally was like, okay, the coaching thing is starting to work out, I backed off of coaching with Runners Connect, but I kept the podcast because we ended up going to 2 episodes a week at one point, which was my idea, because as much as I love interviews, I felt like we needed to do some more teaching, helping people become better runners instead of just interviewing. And so we went to 2 episodes a week for a while. And that's when it was really like, this is what I really want to do. I mean, I still do interviews. I love interviews, but I also wanted to help people who didn't know what they were doing with running, or who were somewhere on their journey and just wanted more explanation of a particular topic. So I introduced that, and I still do that today with the Planet Runner.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to take a little bit of credit here, because I believe very early on, and it was probably like the first Extra Kick episode you did, I think I messaged you and I said, you need your own podcast. I mean, you just like, you had it, you've got the voice, you've got the energy, you've got the content. So I'm going to, good job, Jer.
Yes, you definitely encouraged me right from the beginning. And a lot of people did, but you and I worked together pretty closely. So you definitely were somebody who was like, yeah, you got this, go for it. So I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
And you make me sound good every week.
I try. But no, that's really cool. And I like that you mentioned, the duality, I guess, of the types of episodes that you do, because I think they're both incredibly valuable. It's always great to hear from an expert. You've had some elite people on, and also you've also had some more recreational runners, which is also incredibly valuable. And then you've, with the solo episodes, you've got, the technical expertise and the technical, like, okay, here's how you do something. Here's why you do something. Here's why you don't do this.
Yeah.
And I really love how, you came up with the, I guess, the format with, putting the music underneath. And, I personally, from the editing standpoint, like, I really like how those episodes translate. They sound good. They flow good. The music is just enough to break it up. You pick good music, I think now, when we kind of, I think we've kind of got a feel for like what kind of music, we want. So I know I've gone on some shopping sprees to pick out some of the music, and, it's just like, I don't know. It's a really good thing. I really like it.
Yeah. The music thing kind of happened sort of organically because, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I started listening to the technical side of a lot of podcasts that I really like that are not in the running genre. And I was like, I really like how this podcast does this. I really like how this podcast does that. They create drama when they're telling a story with music. And then when you watch movies or TV, you start to listen to this stuff over and over again. I was like, wow, the music is really perfect there. What's going on? How can I use this in the podcast? And so that's one thing that I've tried to do with those solo episodes. It's not just say, this is how you increase your running cadence, but I want to tell a story. I want to make it interesting. I want you to be on a run when you're listening to this and really make your run more entertaining, but also you should have learned something by the end of that run. So that's really important to me. And it's amazing how much music makes a difference, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it would just be so dry without it. You can tell, like, it's, I don't know, it breaks it up enough. And especially, in this TikTok era where no one has any attention span anyway, that's really good. I also like that the length is appropriate. You're not doing, 45 to 60 minutes of technical information.
Right.
It's like, 15-ish. Which is, that's, I feel, the right size for all of that. And if people want to listen to more, then they can binge on some of them. So
Absolutely.
So transitioning, kind of jumping back to that, when you did make the leap from Runners Connect to the Planted Runner, if I remember correctly, there was some overlap with those, right? Where you kind of had, you're straddling a little bit, foot in each world. So what was that like? And then ultimately, how are you able to just make that full transition? Yeah.
So when I decided, yes, I'm going to do the podcast and go all in with the Planted Runner, I felt like, number one, I want to make sure that this is viable. I don't want to just like go out there and it's a total flop and then I've lost my job, Yeah. But I also just was like, okay, I can do both for a little while. And I promoted it online in my newsletter, on Instagram. And, I ran a little contest where if you wrote a review of the trailer, that I'd send a little freebie out to, the first 100 people. And that worked incredibly well. And so before the actual first episode even aired, my show had already gone to the #1 running podcast in the United States in the rankings. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have something. And those rankings, take those with a little bit of salt. They have a lot to do with momentum and newness and, trending kind of stuff. It's not just pure numbers, but that was like an exterior sign that, okay, I might be able to transition a little sooner. And so I had told myself, this was August of last year. And I told myself, I'm going to wait maybe till the end of 2022 and do them both for a while. But as soon as I started hitting my stride right away, I was just like, I don't think I can do both. I don't want my best work going to somebody else. I want my best work to be on my project. And I just felt like I couldn't have my heart 100% in both at the same time. And so I gave a month's notice and transitioned. And it turned out Runners Connect was planning on going in a different direction anyway, and were wanting to change things with the podcast that I probably, in all honesty, would not have done or wanted to go in the direction that they wanted to go in. But it ended up being just absolute perfect timing for us both. So it ended up being a win-win. And, I couldn't have been happier with how the transition happened. It was just really smooth, really friendly. We wish each other well.
Yeah. And I think that says, speaks a lot to Runners Connect, for them, giving you the flexibility to do both, and then also to transition away, and everyone was very cool about it. And that's unfortunately, that is not always the case. So that's great that worked out for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is that they have years of my voice and my content, and they have made it into, they are really good at repurposing things from old, past hosts and past people who have contributed to them. And so they take a lot of the stuff that I have done for the past, 7 years that I worked there, and are making new things out of it. And, on the one hand, just like, wait a second, is that something that I'm cool with? But then on the other hand, the more I get my message out to runners, the more I can help runners. It really doesn't matter what platform I'm on. If I am still creating valuable content, or somebody else is creating it with my voice, it's still getting to the people who need to hear the message. And ultimately, that's a good thing. I, of course, want them to succeed because I'm still a part of them, in some way, nothing that you do online ever disappears. And so, I want them to still succeed, of course, because I'm still, part of their story. So I want it to be a good story.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. In addition to the podcast, you're also doing some coaching. You even coach someone who's on this podcast right now.
Yes, I do. You decided to join my Planted Runner team. And it's been, well, you could talk about how good it's been. It's been great on my side.
Well, that's good to hear. I warned you up front. I said, Athlete Jer can be a lot. And I try to rein it in on you, this week aside. But how has your coaching evolved from, maybe even from like how you were working with Runners Connect, if you want to go into that, and if you don't, that's fine. But also, like, since you've launched the Planted Runner, has the coaching evolved much? I know there's a lot of emphasis on the PR team. Do you still do individual clients? Are you transitioning away from that? What does that kind of look like?
Yeah. So I think when most people start out coaching, whatever your niche is, you really start off with one-on-one coaching at first because you don't have an audience. You can't do this volume when you're new. And, because I was still coaching on a little bit with Runners Connect, some people had known me and wanted to work with me personally. So, some of those people came with me when I left the coaching business of Runners Connect. So I was doing just one-on-one coaching for a while still doing the other show and working with Runners Connect. And, it got to a point where, I'm just one person and there's a limit to how much one-on-one coaching I can do. And I don't see myself as wanting to hire a bunch of coaches under me. That's a natural progression. And because I want to spend my time coaching, I don't want to spend my time, managing other coaches, and maybe in the future something like that will happen, but I just don't see that is really the next step for me. So I was like, well, how can I help more people at this, and get my message across in a kind of different way? And I came up with the PR team, which obviously PR for Planted Runner, but also personal record. I like the play on word there. And, so I launched that in October of last year. And of course, like anybody that puts something out in the world, you're just like, is anybody going to sign up? Is anybody going to join? Like, I was like, I told myself, if I've got 5 people, that's a group. I'll be super excited if I have 5 people.
It is technically a group.
Yes. And so I promoted it and I'm so excited about it. And I think I got 20 people right at the beginning to sign up. And I was just over the moon. And so the cool thing with that is we have a group within Final Surge, which is the coaching athlete platform that we use. And so it has like a page that is sort of like a Facebook group where we can all talk, where we can all share, and the athletes can talk to each other, get feedback from each other, without ever having to leave the app. So I really like that because I don't love Facebook. I didn't want to do it the normal way. I didn't want to do a bunch of Zoom calls. And so my idea with the group was that I would do a private podcast. So I would go into the group. I go into the group twice a week. I answer questions. I give feedback. I check on workouts, but I also look for questions for the private podcast each week. And the private podcast is very different from the Planted Runner podcast. The Planted Runner is very polished. We got the music. We got the editing. I just do this by myself. I just have some bullet points and I just talk into the air. So it's really more casual. It's a little behind the scenes. But what's cool about it is that I'm addressing people that I work with, their questions, their issues. I go in depth on certain workouts that they, that they have questions about, and so it's really timely to everybody that I'm working with. And I don't know. What do you think about it?
Yeah. So I was going to ask permission to brag on you a little bit. So
sure.
I won't. I will just take that invitation. So I look forward to the private podcast every Friday morning. Like that almost makes it worth driving into work on Fridays so that I can listen to it in the car. Yeah, it is really good because it's the sort of thing where if one person has a question, probably several people are wondering about that. And if they're not, then maybe they will down the road and they'll remember, oh yeah, no, that's right. Claire talked about this. Like, let me just go find that episode. So I really love the private podcast. You give recognition to people who have races coming up and what they're working on. You have recognition for race results. It just really, I think, brings, ties the community together even more cohesively with that. The social wall is great. It's amazing to see. First of all, it's amazing for me because I feel like I was kind of early to the game, maybe not as early, but to see how the group has grown in numbers. Mm-hmm. And how supportive they all are. Anyone can ask a question at any point in time, and people with good feedback will give good feedback. I don't think we've ever really gotten like bad feedback from the group.
No.
People might have a couple different takes on something, but everyone truly wants to help everyone else. It's an amazing group that you've got in there. We can post our workouts, and usually people will, talk about the workout, if it was great or if someone kind of struggled, and people can add some comments onto that. You're always in there looking at our workouts, especially if we call something out with a question. You'll go in and say, okay, well, here's what's going on with this. And very often that will then end up in that private podcast where, okay, this came up on the social wall, so let's talk about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other thing I really like that I was blown away with. So anytime I've had a training cycle end with a goal race, and usually a few days before that, I'm already thinking about, okay, well, what's next, provided I'm not injured. But once I tell you, okay, this is the next thing, it's like, it's like maybe 48 hours, usually 24, if that, where I have my training schedule loaded into Final Surge. Mm-hmm. And I'm not just talking about the running workouts, which is great. I mean, that's, for me personally, like 80% of having a coach is I should not be coming up with what should I be doing. All I want to think about is, when am I going to do it? Where am I going to do it? And how awful are the conditions going to be, whether it's summer, winter, or raining? So I just totally want to subrogate that decision making to a coach. But in addition to that, we've got probably 3 or 4 strength training workouts per week. Mm-hmm. And these are not like an hour workout. It's like 15 minutes, 10 minutes of core, 15 minutes of upper body. And we'll go into, I think, your newest endeavor with that in a little bit. Yeah. You've got mental strength tips. And that's another thing that I love in the podcast is you always have the mental strength minute. And, that's always good stuff. And then you've got nutrition tips. So it's like this, I look at Final Surge and my mind is blown, like, there it is. There's everything. I've got everything I need, and now it's all on me.
Yes, that is my goal. I think a lot of training plans, they do 80% of the job. They give you your running, and sometimes they give you your strength training, and then really that's about it. And you're kind of on your own. And I think you really need to have a more holistic approach. I think the mental strength thing is I don't know, is that 80% of running? Maybe at least 50% is getting that, getting your brain to do something hard, that
it doesn't want you to do.
Exactly. That's fighting against. So, those are the 3 things: is all of the training, the nutrition, and the mental strength. Those 3 things are the pillars, and I try to give that to everybody. And you can get in the weeds with all of this stuff. You can get super, super detailed, but I really think simplification is the key, especially for people who, this is not our full-time job for people. They have other things to do. I want people to have very quick, actionable things that can help them become a better runner. And so yeah, I think you asked earlier if I'm still working with one-on-one clients, and I still am. And I have various levels of that, but I think there will be a time where I transition to either 100% or, 75% or more with just the group, because right now I think I have the capacity to probably double the group, because, some people are very, very active and other people are less active. Everybody is their own person. Some people don't post and enjoy just kind of hanging out, and other people post a lot. I love the squeaky wheel, so keep posting. But I think there's a way to, transfer some of the time that I am currently doing one-on-one to one-on-many, and spend more time in the group than I am now, so that I think I'll be able to grow the group to a point where it still feels like a small group, and I don't ever want it to be like, oh, Claire's too busy for me, because that means it's too much. And I don't ever want to be at that point. That's not worth it to me. But I want to make sure that it's still really valuable and people get to know each other and they still feel like they are a part of a team. Before I get back to the conversation, I want to talk about a massive problem that I see with runners everywhere, and especially plant-based runners. You know that I'm the first to tell you that you can absolutely get everything you need from a plant-based diet as an endurance runner. But most runners are struggling. With our busy lives and time-consuming training schedules, making sure that you get enough to fuel your training and making sure that it's actually optimal for your health and performance is a real challenge. So that's why I tell all my athletes to make nutrition simpler and get Neurify Plus by Previnex. In less than a minute, you can mix their superior quality protein shake up with just water in a shaker bottle, and it actually tastes delicious. That is not the case with other plant-based powders I've tried. You can enjoy Neurify right after a workout, knowing you are getting everything you need for muscle repair, with none of the junk that you're going to get in one of the lower quality powders. Another cool way to use it is to mix up a couple of scoops with water or warm plant-based milk right before bed. Studies have shown that taking 20 to 30 grams of protein right before bed is the optimal time for protein synthesis and muscle repair that we all need. Look, this is the only product that I'm working with, and that's for a very good reason. I believe in Previnex quality, their mission, and I use Neurify Plus myself. And I'm not the only one. Lindsay Hine of All Have Another, Jason Fitzgerald of Strength Running, Whitney Hines of the Mother Runners, Elite Athlete, Emily Infeld, and so many others in the running world are passionate about Previnex too. If you're ready to simplify your nutrition and optimize your fueling, you can try Neurify for 15% off the regular price with my code PR15. That's PR15 at Previnex.com. I want to tell you about a unique opportunity for you to get stronger, faster, and stay motivated to hit all your running and nutrition goals this year, and that is to join the PR team. I started it last fall, and I have to tell you, it's even better than I imagined. Each member of the team gets a custom training plan made by me for you based on your unique fitness, goals, and lifestyle. Everything you need to crush your running dreams is included, such as strength training, recovery, and even cross-training if you want it. I include weekly mental strength training as well as tips and nutrition guides. But here's where it gets really cool. The group has its own page in the app where we share workouts, ask training questions, and get feedback from me and the other teammates. And each week, I create an exclusive private podcast just for the team based on the questions I get and what I see in their training each week. And I usually end up sharing behind the scenes and exclusive sneak peeks with the team that I don't share anywhere else. So instead of joining a Facebook group or sitting through another Zoom call, you get to listen to tailored advice on the run, and you don't have to do all of this alone. So if you are ready to take your running to the next level and join an amazing team of runners, head to theplantedrunner.com/group and join us today. It's more affordable than you think, and I can't wait to have you.
There is no hood like parenthood. When you meet a fellow parent, you just kind of get each other on a whole nother level. Hi, I'm Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm a former CNN journalist, mom of 3, including twins, and host of That's Total Mom Sense, the podcast. I interview changemakers on their life lessons, legacy, and superpower of intuition, aka their mom sense and dad sense. I've had some pretty amazing parents on my show.
Hey, what's up? I'm Kelly Rowland.
Hi, this is Chelsea Clinton. It's me, Bobby Brown. Can't wait to share my story.
Episodes release every Thursday. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Join my tribe at thatstotalmomsense.com and follow me on Instagram at Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you.
Hear Her Sports is a podcast for everyone who loves stories by and about women striving to improve and make a difference in their lives. I am your host, Elizabeth Emery, a former professional cyclist. In every episode, I introduce a female athlete or woman in the business of sport through a thoughtful conversation about who they are and the terrific work they're doing. My guests and I explore the glorious and frustrating issues in sports, history, equity, training, nutrition, and so much more. Join us for inspiration, for community, and for love of being a strong, athletic woman.
So I want to transition here also because you've got a couple things that have happened this year in addition to stuff that happened last year.
Yeah.
You've been busy. So, so you had a book that came out in January. And what was that like? I mean, as far as, and I remember when you let me know, hey, I got a book deal, and how excited you were. How long did that excitement last before it turned into, dear God, what have I gotten myself into? Because I've heard that happens with books. And, what was that process like? How's it been going since release?
Yeah. So the book thing that was definitely a whirlwind, but also slow motion at the same time. So I got my book deal in December of 2020. So I hadn't even done the podcast for a year, but I had developed some relationships with publishers because oftentimes publishers, authors that write new books, they want to publicize their books and they want to get on podcasts. And so some of my guests came from publishers pitching me those guests who had just written a book. So they eventually were like, hey, why don't you write a book? And I said, okay, because I've been writing about running since 2016 when I started my blog. And I also obviously script a lot of my podcasts. And so I write a lot about running. So I felt really comfortable with the topic. And so so that was December of 2020. I'm really excited about that. And then my manuscript was due September of 2021. And so I had all of that time, 9 months or so to get the first draft out. And, that was painful. I'm not going to lie. I think marathon running is easier than book writing for sure. But I got my first draft in, and then basically it wasn't, it's revisions and pictures and all sorts of stuff like that until I think that was about March of 2022. And, as everybody remembers, there was a worldwide pandemic going on at this time. And so there were a lot of delays. It was supposed to come out in the fall of 2022, but it ended up getting pushed back to January of 2023 when it finally came out. And so, I almost, by that time, it was like, oh yeah, I wrote a book. I completely forgot because there's so much time in between, and like the pain was like a year old at this point. And so I was like, oh yeah, now I've got to talk about my book. And which I don't even remember writing. No, I'm kidding. But it was a long, exactly. It was a very, very long process. And, traditional publishing authors, unless they are like, #1 New York Times bestsellers or whatever, they don't, authors really don't make a ton of money. So I didn't do this because I wanted to be, some New York Times bestseller or make $1 million. I will not make $1 million. But I really wanted to be able to put my work in one spot. I definitely wanted to check the box of lifelong dream of writing a book. I'm super happy at that accomplishment, but also it's really nice to have a very low means of entry to my philosophy and, to be able, you could pick up this book and become a better runner with a plant-based diet, after reading it. And it's just a really, it's like, hey, you want to learn about me? Here you go. You want to be a better runner? Here you go. Yeah. $20 or whatever it costs. And it's just, or get it from your local library for free. It was a really gratifying process to have it done. The actual doing it was extremely painful, and I don't recommend it. But no, I'm thrilled to be a published author. I give away the book once a month to people who write a podcast review. So it's been great seeing the people that say, "Oh, I've read your book and it's awesome," and that's just like, wow, that is a huge, huge compliment. So yeah, nice. That's been crazy. Yeah.
And then you've also started another kind of side. It's not really a side project, but it is, I guess, an add-on. And I think this was probably came about from, I'm going to say mostly from the PR team group. And that's with your creation of strength training videos on YouTube. So the first question I have for you is, how do you feel after 3 hours of filming last week? Are you starting to feel a little bit better?
And then finally feel better.
And then second, what has that been like? What is, what do you see happening with that? Just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So the YouTube journey has been, I am not going to lie, has been a challenge. So I really wanted to, put the podcast on YouTube, in which, make video versions of the audio podcast for YouTube, which I've done for the past, 9 months or so. And I have help with them. I don't make them myself. But I really like them. I think they should be doing great, but it's just, for some reason, I'm growing very, very slowly over there. So I really kind of want to rethink the whole YouTube being a part of the Planted Runner. I think what I'm learning is that in order to have success on YouTube, you really need to make native content for YouTube. Yes, there's some repurposing possible. And yes, if you're already a big, big star, you might be able to, do well transferring your podcast to YouTube. But for right now, I think I'm at a point where I need to pivot. And I also want to make something great and useful, number one, for my clients, but then anyone else out there who is looking for strength training and mobility for runners. So what I did at the beginning of starting coaching, and what I still use today, is I have found YouTube videos of strength training for my athletes that I use myself that I feel are really helpful. They're not always specifically geared to runners, but they don't necessarily have to be. I mean, a squat is a squat, right? So it's good for a runner. It's good for a tennis player. A squat is a squat. But, there comes to a point where I think that people want more of a connection with me. And I want to give people very specific advice that clearly I believe in, because it's me on the video. So I want to create something that people will watch over and over and over again that is really simple. So like anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes of targeted strength training that really kind of go together with my running training as well. So I've started doing these videos. I haven't been 100% consistent with, putting them one out every single week, but I think that's going to change now. I have a friend who's a photographer, videographer, so she'll be helping me out with the new batch of those. And so, as far as me being sore, so she came over the other day and we filmed 4 of them in a row. And because this was our first time working together, we had some bugs to work out. The camera stopped recording, so I had to do some of these twice, And so basically it was me strength training for, 2.5 or 3 hours, and which I don't recommend you do, by the way.
So Claire is getting ripped.
I am going to get
Claire
ripped.
get ripped on YouTube.
Yes, exactly. So it'll be a journey of me too. So, and I think doing that, number one, forget about YouTube success or whatever. I really don't care about being some YouTube star, right? I just want to be able to help runners in whatever way and on whatever platform they use the most. So if I'm not, some great YouTuber, that's okay. But what I'm doing is I'm number one, creating content for my current clients, which I think is always going to be an asset, definitely worth the investment. And if other people find this content eventually and then number one, get helped, or number two, come into my world, great. That is more of a second bonus.
Right.
But I think it's something that I really want to create as an asset to help any kind of runner. So so I've got a few of them up already. So if you're listening to this, you can check them out, and hopefully more to come. I have been a personal trainer. I have been certified many, many moons ago. And so it's kind of fun to like get back into this kind of thing, back to teaching this, even though it's in a video format. Back then it was in person, but so it's really nice to kind of explore this area, and hopefully it's helpful.
Yeah. So a couple things. First of all, the podcast or the YouTube versions of your podcast, those videos are incredible.
I know. I think they're awesome.
Yeah, they're so well done. And then, speaking specifically to the strength stuff, so I've used some of yours, and you and I have had this conversation offline. You know that I'm not a fan of multiple sets of something. If I didn't hit it the first time, it had its chance. And so that's one of the things I like about your videos is there isn't a lot of repetition. Well, I don't think there's any repetition in any of the ones that I've done.
Stay tuned.
Nuts.
There will be some supersets coming up, but yeah, you don't need to do a whole lot as a runner. We're not trying to be Arnold Schwarzenegger here. We're not trying to be bodybuilders. We're trying to not be weak. So you don't have to do a ton of reps, a ton of sets, or lift crazy heavy weights. Honestly, the only thing that's important is consistency, is you do it regularly. If you like light weights, great. If you like heavy weights, great. Just do it consistently, whatever it is. Yes, there are, details that are different, versus, which modality you're using. But ultimately, if you're not doing it consistently, none of the details matter. So whatever you want, whatever makes you do it, do that.
Yep. Yeah. And because they're like 10 minutes or so, it's easy to get some strength work in several times over the course of a week without, like I've done another popular and successful fitness program that would create a body fit for a beach. And I felt like it just took over my life. But these aren't like that. So I like that because runners want to run, but we also don't want to get hurt. So we got to do our strength training.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So kind of zooming out, looking back, because again, this is the anniversary episode. When you think back over the past year, what would you say have been some of your biggest successes? What do you wish you might have done differently or have gone differently? And then we'll start with that.
Yeah. As a fan of running, and, I personally love having the opportunity of interviewing some of the biggest names in the sport, both the athletes and, famous writers and researchers. So, Matt Fitzgerald, Lauren Fleshman, of course, Des Linden, some of these really big names. I'm just honored and humbled and giddy when I get to say I interviewed that person. Some of the really big names wrote really sweet things about my book, wrote really nice reviews. So that is like all wonderful stuff. And I personally get joy out of that. But what I really didn't expect was how well the shows do that are just regular people, the people that from the team that I have interviewed. One person is Cynthia Miller. I interviewed her, and she is rocking it. And, she's 70 years old, and it is amazing. And, it just has a beautiful attitude towards running. And, the real runner episodes are the ones that just strike a chord with other real runners, And so that is something that I've really enjoyed, really like the episodes that are like that. And, all the sweet comments and the sweet reviews, those just make me, it's like it's all worth it. I sit here and I talk into the microphone to no one most of the time, and I don't know how it's received until someone tells me. And so when people send me a nice email or anything like that, I'm just like, wow, it's all worth it. And I know that I'm, doing the right thing. As far as what I would do differently, I want to say, oh, maybe I would have started sooner or something like that. But I don't think so. I think it all happened right at the right moment. And, I don't necessarily believe in meant to be or things like that, but it has really worked out great. And, even some of the not so great times all brought me to where I am now. So I honestly wouldn't change a thing.
Oh, nice. Thinking back on your clients and your athletes, not just the PR team, but even your one-on-one clients, do you have any success stories that come to mind with, something that you're, I don't know, really proud of, or, a milestone or something, an achievement someone did? Doesn't have to be me. It could be someone else.
I have a lot of those, actually. Some of the most dramatic ones are the people who start with me and they've either been a runner many, many moons ago, or they've just gotten into running. And so they're a complete and total beginner. And we start them with a run walk program. And, when people say, oh, I want to run, they want to run. They don't want to run walk, And I was like, well, let's just start. Let's try this. Run walk is actually amazing for everybody. So I've had people who were basically run walking for 20 minutes at a time. And in a year, they're running a marathon.
Wow.
It just absolutely, without being injured, very gradual process, which if you don't have patience, then endurance running is not your thing, because you need to have some patience with endurance running. So there's a few stories like that. One of my flashiest clients, as far as, speed or whatever, broke the Masters age 50. He got the Masters age 50 World Championship last year. And so I coached him, so I feel super, super proud of that. And he did an amazing job, and he got his plaque handed to him by Eliud Kipchoge.
Come on.
It's just like,
that is awesome.
I know. So of course that kind of thing is awesome, but I really don't coach a lot of people at that level at all. I coach. Yes. Well, but I really actually enjoy, the everyday runner. So I coach some people who are really fast, but the majority of people are in the middle. And then I also have back of the packers, but I really like, full-time moms, full-time dads, full-time whatever it is, where running is just your joy and your stress relief, and you want to be really good at it. Those are the people who I really love more than just like breaking records, so.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, because I've listened to a few running podcasts in my time. And one of the things that I even hear the elites say is how impressed they are with non-elite recreational runners, because elites get to focus primarily on their running, which many recreational runners wish they could do. But they don't have that luxury, and so they've got to make it work with all the other stuff that they've got going on. So yeah, I hear that.
Absolutely.
What about you? What about your own running? Any marathons on the schedule?
I do not race marathons anymore. Never say never. Maybe if my kids decided that they would like to run a marathon in the future, I would do it with them or something really special. But, I spent a lot of time getting really, really good at the marathon, and I climbed my Mount Everest. I reached the goal that I wanted. And, after that, I was like, okay, I need something new in my life. I'm not going to spend all this time, energy, all of this just to be a minute or two faster. Like, that wasn't interesting to me. I know how hard it is to run that at that level. And I was just like, I need something else. And so honestly, I really pour my heart and soul into helping other people do this. And, I had a journey that I feel like I can share with other people. And that is really my passion today. So as far as my running, the competing part of it was probably, I was not always my best self, trying to be the very, very best. I was very, very, I wouldn't say, obsessed is a little strong, but close to it. And,
focused.
So now
you're just very focused.
Very focused. I was very, very focused, and which is what it takes to do something really well. And so I don't want to be that focused on that anymore. I did that. And so I'm really, really focused on helping others, building this coaching business, building the podcast, all of that sort of stuff. So for my running, I still run usually every other day. I don't run every single day anymore. And then strength train, obviously lots of strength training.
Apparently.
But running will always be a part of my life, it just in a different way. That's
awesome. All right. So I know we're kind of coming up on time, although, it's your podcast. It's a milestone podcast. You've earned as much time as you want. But at the end of a lot of your shows, you have asked your guest or guests, what's the greatest gift running has given to you? So Claire, Coach Claire of the Planted Runner podcast, what is the greatest gift running has given to you?
I should have like a beautiful answer to this since I ask this all the time, but it has given me so much. It has absolutely transformed my life. So, running has been a thread in my life from, a teenager all the way to now. It wasn't that I was actively running all that time. I definitely was not, but it came in and out of my life at certain points. So, and it's always been something to come back to. And now, obviously, running is something that my whole career is based on now. So it has really given me just transformation. It really has transformed me, not only physically, but who I am, what I do for a living. It has built my confidence levels. I've met so many new people through running. So to say the greatest gift is like, how can I choose one thing? It's really just been transformational.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you for sure. And I would honestly say that anyway. But no, I appreciate, like I said, I enjoy working on your podcast. I enjoy working with you. Thank you for dealing with me as an athlete, and all of my nuances. But the first year's in the books, and one of the things. So a little anecdote: when we first started, and we did episode 1. So I did a file naming convention where I labeled the episode 001 because I want them to go in my files sequentially. And I remember you kind of picking up on that and being like, wow, you're optimistic. We can get up to 1,000 before we hit any issue. So let's see. Let's see if we can max that out.
Yes, definitely. Well, I appreciate you too, Jeremy. You have not only added the show, but you are somebody who I can always message for advice, opinions, and, you're a true collaborator on this. And I don't know if I could have done it without you.
Oh, you probably could have. It just wouldn't have been as fun.
It wouldn't have been as good. All right. Thank you so much, Jeremy.
Thank you, Claire. This has been fun, and I will talk to you on Final Surge soon.
If you've made it all the way to the end, you must be a true fan, or you are on a really long run right now. And I want to say again how grateful I am to you. This one went a little long, so I will be back next week with another Mental Strength Minute. Cheers to another year. Thank you for listening to or watching The Planted Runner, part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. Don't forget that you can win a copy of my book for leaving an Apple Podcast review, so be sure to write yours right after your run today. Reviews are the #1 way to boost this show's reach, and it's a great way to tell me what you'd like to hear next, because I read every single one. Have a great run today.
Sports stars. They're like superheroes.
But they're actually real.
Which is why we've made a podcast about them. You see,
They've all got a story.
but too many of these stories were cut short.
Kobe Bryant,
Payne Stewart,
Flojo,
Phil Hughes.
Justin Fashanu,
We're writing episodes about all of them.
and sadly many more.
Death of a Sports Star, a new series from Crowd Network.